Hello there. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our session today. My name is Jennifer Fink. I'm the Senior Marketing Director for Math and Statistics here at Cengage, and I'm very excited to be here today with our wonderful product management team for Cengage Webassign. Before we get started, we're going to have everybody introduce themselves so you can get to know all of us a little bit better. But before we do so, just a quick reminder for the Q&A and chat. We have two ways to communicate with us today. We will be on silent, and that's mainly due to the large number of attendees. We want to make sure everybody has an optimal audio experience today and can hear everything in the webinar. But please put your questions in the Q&A box. We're going to be getting those to those at the end of the session. And then use the chat to communicate with your peers. We'd love to hear what your reactions are in real time to what you're seeing on the screen and what you're hearing from our team. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to try to keep this under 30 minutes today to be respectful of your time, because we do know that it's exam period, it's spring break. You guys have a lot going on right now, but so we really do appreciate you taking some time to share with us today. So I'm going to stop sharing here so you can meet our team. So why don't we kick it off to our team members in North Carolina first.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Tracy Tessier, and I'm the engineering manager for Webassign. I'm excited to have the opportunity to share with you the work that we've been doing to improve Webassign. My day-to-day is spent working with the technical product managers to ensure we take the requirements we receive and from our product managers and execute on those requirements. Most of my day is spent interacting with the engineers on the floor and building the features to improve your Webassign experience.
Hey everybody, I'm Baxter Crabtree. I'm a technical product manager here at Webassign. Like Tracy, I work with the teams on a day-to-day basis. I also work with Tracy and product directors, sales folks, content specialists, marketing folks like Jennifer here to help build the roadmaps for Webassign so that we're always focused on building the high quality products and experiences and making sure that all learners get the value out of Webassign that we know that we can deliver.
Hey everybody, I'm Mark Santi. I'm the product director for math, statistics, physics, and Webassign here at Cengage. I've been with Webassign for 10 years, and over that time I've worked on the product end with my product management team, who are out there in the field visiting with most of you, or at least talking to you or hearing from you on email. My team puts together the content that goes into Webassign and then works with Tracy's team and Baxter's team to put together the technology roadmap to deliver the features and functionality to use so the Webassign experience improves your students' learning and makes it easier for you to teach.
Hi, I'm Thais Alinkar. I'm the VP of Product for Cengage in Math and Sciences. I lead those both teams, making sure that our teams are interacting with all functions at Cengage and bringing quality of learning and high quality products for everybody on the market.
And hello everyone, my name is Mike Lafreniere, faculty partner from Ohio University, residing here in Chillicothe. Look forward to sharing with you some of my experiences with the new user interface here shortly.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, we're especially pleased to have Mike here with us today because he's actually using it in his class this spring and can give us real-time feedback from his students and from the instructor perspective. So I don't know if any of the rest of you heard this, but I heard Mark say that he's been with Webassign for 10 years. So Mark, why don't you give us a brief recap of how have you seen Webassign evolve over that 10 years?
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Jennifer. So when I started at Webassign 10 years ago, we were a small company, an independent company based on the campus at North Carolina State University here in Raleigh. And we were a small team of content developers and engineers. Our team was responsible for building pretty much everything in the Webassign experience, from the things that impact your students in their learning every day to the tools you use to build your instruction. And then all of the additional things around that, like integrating with learning management systems, working on ADA compliancy, things that you have to get done to make the teaching experience and learning experience integrated and valuable, but don't really contribute directly to how students are learning in the course, the content they're interacting with. So over time, we were building out roadmaps and delivering a lot of features and functionality and content. Back in 2016, when Webassign was acquired by Cengage, we were very fortunate to have a large technology company investing a lot in the Webassign application. And what we found is we're able to accelerate a lot of the things we were trying to do on our own by leveraging different technology resources and content resources we didn't have access to as a smaller independent company. And what you'll see today and what you're going to see into the future is really going to be about how that partnership's unlocking a lot of potential to build new functionality and new features and new content that you're going to see rolling out at a much more accelerated pace. One thing that hasn't changed, though, is how we're really focused on making sure your students are learning better, and we're delivering tools that make it easier for you to teach. You're still on mute, Jen.
I am. So, okay, well, thank you very much, Mark, for that historical perspective. And it sounds like we have a very exciting future ahead of us, which I'm very pleased to hear. So can you tell us, because I know you're my go-to guy for everything Webassign, you are the true expert on our team here, and I appreciate all of that knowledge. So what is one of the things that you always tell instructors to do when they're starting or when they're using Webassign? What's your top tip?
With Webassign, there's a lot of functionality, a lot of things you can actually do. That's what our customers like about it. That's what I like about it. It lets you kind of customize things and tweak different ways that you're teaching over time. So you might want to try one thing, one term, and try slightly different the following term. The one tip I always give first-time users is take a look at the documentation. Start small, but really keep in mind what's working and what's not, and work through that documentation. Pretty much anything that you want to do is laid out in a very straightforward manner. So whenever Jennifer asks me questions on can we do this, usually I check the documentation. But it's phenomenal, and the tech writers that we have on staff here are very good. They're probably the best technical writing team I've worked with.
Great. Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. So quality of learning is one of the key tenets of Cengage and our mission. So Thais, would you be able to expand upon what does quality of learning mean, and what does that mean for our customers?
Yeah, so quality of learning has been a big priority for us here at Cengage. Our Center of Excellence in Learning defines very clear standards for quality of learning in our products. We have learning designers in our teams applying our principles of intentionality, authenticity, inclusivity, and personalization to our product. We have in-house subject matter experts as part of our full-time teams that partner with academic experts sometimes to create new interactive learning tools that engage students even more as they work through their Webassign assignments. We are also constantly expanding our content types in Webassign outside of the traditional textbook revisions to continually add value to students and faculty. And that is how the quality of learning will show up to our customers, both instructors and students, is the engagement with assignments, the quality of the work that is putting out there. I believe that Mark Santi, our product director for Max that just spoke now, will be able to show us some of our newer content features, and we'll be able to really experience that quality that we are trying to put through.
Thanks, Thais. So I wanted to take a few minutes to kind of walk you guys through some things you may have seen, some things you may have not. I'm hoping you can see my Webassign screen. Over the past few years, as we kind of integrated the Webassign technology team with the Cengage technology team, we spent a lot of time doing a lot of that work, and Tracy will explain some of that in a minute. But what we've also spent a lot of time doing is building out new content types that you can have your students interact with that are really designed to get a different learning experiences for students. So one thing I wanted to point out first, some of you using our college algebra books and pre-calculus books and calculus books may have seen our new Explore It modules, which are available with those titles. These Explore It's are really designed to help students get a better conceptual understanding of the math that they're doing in those classes through the use of video and through the use of interactive low stakes testing. So they can explore using simulations. They can answer some basic questions here that are not part of their Webassign grading, but really just helping students better understand the concepts. And then one thing that we really wanted to focus on is helping students answer the question, when am I actually going to use this math in my life? By delivering different applications for each concept that are designed to appeal to different types of students. So giving engineering type examples or pharmaceutical type examples, or even musical type of examples to appeal to all students. So they understand, here's the concepts, here's where I'm using them. And then those examples are followed up by your standard Webassign questions, which are gradable and part of their built-in assignment. For the physicists out there, you may have seen our interactive video vignettes, which are new in some of our physics titles. These we built out with a team of physics education research experts. And the way they work, they take some basic video that show some physics in action, some physics examples, and then walk students through a learning module. So they can actually get so it shows them experiments and it shows them pretty much how that works. And I'm going to try to so those are available throughout our physics products. And then again, they're followed up by Webassign questions that are built in as part of their graded work. In statistics, we've invested a lot in new content types. One of the ones that I'm most proud of is the statistics in practice, which, like the Explore It, try to help students understand by using real-world video, usually pulled from resources like news or television shows, where statistics is being actually used in the real world. And then again, followed up by comprehension type questions so that students are being measured on what they're learning. And finally, one of our newest things in Webassign is we're investing more in astronomy for our astronomy faculty out there. We've released these new virtual astronomy labs, which actually can be used as labs or used as projects for students. There are a series of them that are available. They take a specific astronomical concept, walk them through how to do specific experiments, ask them Webassign questions, and then have interactives that students work through, delivers the narrative directly to them. So all of their lab work is done directly in Webassign, and all of their work is captured. One of the nice things about these virtual astronomy labs is we're differentiating between data and calculation of that data. So students can enter in answers as far as the data they're watching, but then the calculation will unlock as they fill in other parts. That's as if they're working through a lab report in the real world. So we have these available for astronomy. We're looking at having them available for as well. These are just some of the newer content types that we've rolled out in the past 2 years. There's a lot more coming from developmental math all the way up through statistics and even engineering, but we'll cover a little bit of that as we go. And that was all I had to share.
Well, thank you, Mark. Very helpful. We got some comments in the chat. We'd love to hear what you think about, again, anything that you're seeing on the screen today to just get a sense of what your thoughts are around these new assets. This is just the tip of the iceberg with a lot of the content that I've seen coming across and into many of our titles. So I'm very excited to show more of these. And if you have any questions about these, just a reminder, you can, definitely check with your sales representative who would have, more detailed information and can get you hands-on experience with it. So now I'm going to put Tracy on the spot. So Tracy, honestly, we haven't had any significant platform functionality added for our customers for a while now. So can you give us an update on what has been going on and what the team has been working on and what the impact that has been for our customers?
Sure. So in the past 2 years, we've been focused on improving our performance and stability of Webassign. We've done this by enhancing our monitoring, which enables us to proactively identify issues. In addition, we've also focused very heavily on system stability and reliability so we can continue to support our increased user base. Integration with Cengage systems and enabling Cengage Unlimited, which is our student-focused product offering, was another one of our key initiatives. Cengage Unlimited brings all of our platforms together and allows students to access their courseware for a very affordable price. We've officially had our 1 millionth user, as you can see behind me, in celebration. And then to improve the stability and reliability has allowed us to focus heavily late last year, 2018, on our student and instructor experience. Last year, we had 100% uptime for Fall Rush and are tracking to have the best spring year ever. We've also delivered a long requested feature, which is automatic saving of student work. It isn't sexy, but has a dramatic effect on the students' confidence in our platform.
Thank you, Tracy. So we have new enhancements coming. That's one of the things that we're here today to show. So can you share with us, whenever we release new enhancements, there's some risk involved. It's technology. We all know technology has risks. So what have we been doing differently this time around as we head into the changes coming in 2019?
So we're taking a more customer-centric approach by developing new features with the ability to test in our production environment. This allows us to test and monitor changes to see how they impact system performance and the user experience, while also getting customer feedback to shape our end product. We're going to have a phased approach depending on the size of the project, starting with a very small subset of instructors and continuing to add beta users over time before our full rollout, all while gathering the feedback and using that feedback to improve our functionality before it's released to our customers. This allows users to use the feature in our production environment without being exposed to everyone. Cengage Unlimited is a perfect example. If you notice, we did not have a release the morning that Cengage Unlimited went live. That's because we actually had it in production a couple weeks in advance that allowed us to test using our test schools with no effect to you. Autosave and UI, the new student UI experience that I mentioned, are in beta right now, being used in production to ensure a smooth rollout for our fall. This new process has provided us the ability to be extremely confident in our rollouts.
Thank you, Tracy. So for those of you who don't speak software engineer language, full production means the website that you and I actually use every day. So that's where these enhancements are going into that site for a small number of faculty and getting used and tested. So just to clarify that in case anybody had a question. So Tracy, this is really great to hear, because this is going to help us ensure a really optimal customer experience, which is what our number one goal. So can you tell me what as an engineer are you most excited about looking at the upcoming year?
As I mentioned, having a performance and stability baseline for our products enable us to give more focus on customer features. So I'm really excited we're at a point where we are partnering with instructors and students to deliver an improved learning experience through Webassign.
Awesome, thank you. So now let's move over to Baxter so we can dive into the fresh new experience that Webassign will be bringing you this fall. So Baxter, why don't you tell us more about the work that you've been doing, and hopefully you'll show it to us.
I definitely will show it to you. So as Tracy was saying, we spent some time over the past year or so working on stability, performance, reliability, really making sure that Webassign had a firm foundation so that we could take it into the future with confidence. And we spent some time working on Cengage Unlimited too. But once we were finished with those, we had a challenge in front of us. What's the next big thing to work on? Some of those items are autosave for student work, which we've just spoken about, and dusting off the user experience and making sure that Webassign looks like an application that is exciting and interesting and engaging for students and teachers alike. So we started with the students first, and in that, we wanted to make sure that we're providing a more modern and accessible and scalable design that is performant and friendly. So taking that in mind, Webassign is starting to evolve. So this whole effort is an evolution, because it's going to happen across the application. We started with the most used pages on the platform, which are the student homepage and the assignment page. And then we're going to continue to expand that as time goes on, building out further pages and further aspects of Webassign into a sleeker, more modern application. The one thing that is important is that we're being customer focused while we're doing that. So we're working with piloting customers. We're going out and doing market research. We're using analytics and other kinds of metrics and monitoring to figure out how do people use Webassign, what do they like about it, what do they want to have changed. And this also allows them to have some say in controlling what their experience ultimately will be. And then in a more tactical way, we're building in functionality in Webassign that allows the user to have control over their experience while they're actually using the application. So one thing I'm going to do now is switch us over in the Zoom like Mark did so that I can share the new application with you. All right, so this is it. This is the new application. What you can see here is that we have changed the look and feel, but most of the foundation of Webassign is still familiar. You've got your home, assignments, grades, communication, calendar, ebooks, all right here where you've had them before. We've upgraded the experience of how ebooks are working using MindTap Reader, but the way in which you access them is still very much the same. So we've made Webassign easier to use with a modern homepage and assignment experience for students. We've made it more flexible with an upgraded experience across devices. So you can use it on your iPad, you can use it on your application, on your desktop computer much more easily than you could in the past. So we've also made sure that we focused on inclusive access, so accessibility, being able to have Webassign support screen readers and keyboard navigation, and building out Webassign from the very beginning so that we're in line with most of the accessibility guidelines that are out there, so that Webassign is an application that everybody can use. As we scroll down, we see much of the same things that were there before, but we've added more space, made it more flexible, made it easier to see, and brought some things out into focus that previously were not as visible to folks. When I click into assignments, we can see that the assignments, again, are not unfamiliar, but upgraded with their design. And Mike will start to talk more particularly about some of the things that he's seeing as he's been using the application in the pilot. But for now, what I wanted to show you was an example of how Webassign is continuing to evolve. Some of the features in the assignment page, they're still in development. And so what we're doing is we're releasing pieces of the application in smaller chunks so that it can still be usable and still be interactable and still allow students to do their work while we're upgrading it. I hope you enjoyed seeing that sneak peek into Webassign's new look. And Jennifer?
Great. Thank you so much for that. And can you tell us a little bit more about the timeline that this is expected to go out to our customers?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we are going to roll this out in the summer. We already have rolled it out starting in January to 7 instructors and 7 different institutions. And we have about 1,200 students that are using the application right now with the new user interface. So as we move through the end of the spring and into the summer, we're going to be able to roll it out to more and more users. The goal is for everybody to have this new student user experience in the fall of 2019. So they'll have the home page and the assignment page with that fresh new look starting in the fall.
Great. Thank you, Baxter. And we'll have communication around that too. So please, when you see anything about the new interface and you're currently using Webassign, you want to stay up to date on what's going on, then make sure you check out the information that we're providing, and also check with your sales rep to be apprised of any timelines that may affect your courses, especially summer courses and going into fall. So Baxter, you've shared that these changes right now impact the most highly used areas of Webassign, the home page and then the assignment take experience. Can you tell us a little bit more about the timeline for when this is going to be impacting for the real estate in Webassign?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I was saying, we're releasing the home page and the assignment page to students in the fall. And one thing I do want to mention is built into the design And part of our philosophy for development is not impeding on students' ability to get their work done and not impeding on the core experience of why students and instructors use Webassign in the first place. So we want to make sure that as we're rolling new things out, we're monitoring them, making sure that they are being used and are stable, but also potentially providing, when it's appropriate, opportunities for students to turn features off that they may not use. And then, we'll also be monitoring to see how they're using it. So the new user interface will have the ability for students to opt in and opt out, at least through the fall. And we'll be watching that and seeing how people enjoy it to make sure that we're doing the right thing by our customers. As we get into the fall, the team will be hard at work on the rest of the student experience. We've got several more pages to do, the grades, communication, my assignments pages, things like practicing another version of a question, notes, and other pieces of the Webassign application that are not as heavily used as the home and assignment page, but still need some love. Once we get the student experience down, then we'll move on to the instructor experience and start updating that. And most of you who are instructors who've used Webassign or use Webassign now know that the instructor experience is particularly complex. So we're going to be moving carefully there as well.
Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit more? You touched on the fact that the new interface is being built from the ground up and also about accessibility. Can you expand a little bit on the accessibility piece?
Yes. So accessibility means anybody anybody should be able to use Webassign and be able to get the same kind of learning experience from it. So that includes people who need you to use screen readers, people who need to navigate Webassign with keyboard navigation, and there are many guidelines that are out there. The primary ones are the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and what we're aiming for is Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.0 AA standard, so that all of Webassign, particularly the student home and assignment pages, meet or exceed those standards. And that's the goal we're going for, as well as full browser support for all modern browsers.
Wonderful. I think a lot of people will be thrilled to hear that news and to see these changes taking place. So with that said, I'm very excited and that we have Mike here with us today, because again, it's one thing to hear from us. It's another thing to hear from one of your peers that's actually using it. So Mike, why don't you share with us a little bit about your experience so far this spring, what you've been hearing from your students, and how what is the work that you've been doing? How is that impacting the development of Webassign?
Well, I thank you, Jennifer. It's a great opportunity to be here with everyone today to share what I've been able to witness firsthand these last several weeks in using the new interface. And my students have shown a positive response as well in regards to their productive disposition first and foremost. There's an emotional connection to a user interface, and one that Webassign has achieved in making easier for students to not only navigate, but to lower the anxiety upon first entry into their math. Their math alone can create a great deal of anxiety, as many of you may be well aware. So this fits into the various STEM pathways that we're trying to address. I teach environmental engineering as well as mathematics, and finding the benefits across both groups of students. So what I want to do is share with you the very fact of what I've been able to access and use. So on my screen, I think you should start to see some of the content that's available. I hope I get a nod from someone. Jennifer, it looks okay. Yeah. And so on the screen is a sample of what you saw Baxter provide, but in a real context of a course that's being offered this semester, this being a college algebra course, and the idea of the interface being put to the test with both classroom organization as well as assignment level assessment, because the questions are still open-ended. They're still algorithmically generated. There's still the powerful Mathematica grading engine that's behind this interface that makes it easier for students to navigate and get their work done. I'm going to go through even some of those examples in terms of comments that we've received regarding this interface. So what we're noticing on the screen, if you haven't been familiar with Webassign before, is the student's homepage. This is what we would consider the homepage for the student. Has that top level navigation available for students to easily make their way to different components of the course. But the primary point of entry is this homepage, a list of assignments that also include the information that ties to their conditional release, that the aspects of what they're learning has value as they progress through their pathway. And this really fits a co-requisite model that we're looking to build this into as well. It's really working out quite nicely. And so in terms of the flow here, you're starting to see some examples of questions. of assignments, I should say, that aren't accessible to the student. The user interface accounts for these possibilities and even provides the student with the insights of what's necessary regarding password protection. We're seeing here, I can hover over these as the student would and get an indication of what's accessible and what might need to be accessed in a proctored center environment where passwords are provided under those controls. As you can see over to the far right, I use many textbooks in a single course in some instances, and so what you're seeing here is an example of a textbook resource that continually makes it possible for students to gain access to their material. But what I really like is the fact that they now have a more prominent layout of where their past assignments are due. My students are encouraged to work on a mastery level approach, and as assignments go past due, there's encouragement for them to continue their work and master it before they move on to the next requisite material, next material in the pathway. The personal study plan is certainly evident here, as you might be well aware of using. It's a great tool for helping students prep with co-requisite material as well as supporting concepts. You can turn those features on as well as the plethora of resources. Really, you can see I'm using the multiple textbooks I referred to, from Gustafson to Kaufman to Stewart, and I'm able to give my students all the access I need in terms of lecture, worksheets, the things that are helpful for my students to download and gain access to. So here's an example of an assignment in such a course. And in the assignment view, what you're seeing is that bold clarity in terms of what the student is accomplishing as they make their way through their assignments. The link level of complexity has been reduced tremendously. The amount of links, both on the home page and the assignment level, has been reduced, so the eye has a much easier time navigating through the content and focusing on mathematics. You'll notice the due date is much more prominent. The ability to actually print the assignment. These are features that have been asked for and have been delivered upon. Here you notice the actual instructions section can be collapsed and reduced out of the way of the students so that they can focus on the powerful aspects of Webassign with regards to the algorithmically generated questions. These would be open-ended for the sake of using expressions, equations, graphing capabilities. It's quite the powerful engine that we still have available to us. We can certainly take advantage of much of these tools now with the added benefit of accessibility. If you caught a glimpse, under the instructions path of this assignment, we can still embed and customize to our heart's content. A big feature of mine that I want to maintain was that ability to add content to Google Drive or to YouTube or other resources. I do a number of statistical assignments where I want my students to use online Excel spreadsheets. I embed right inside the instructions page, allowing my students to use an online statistical calculator that is very popular for them to run models and examples to the open-ended questions that we take advantage of. So the questions themselves can be open-ended. I'm using this for a mathematical course in teaching elementary teachers. So we've got the kinds of questions that are out there that allow them to expound on their thinking, to provide some feedback. That possibility exists in these questions in the form of essay questions, the kind that we as instructors can continually grade. You'll notice them here as a combination, not only in the actual assignment, sorry, it's still loading, but actually right below the questions, you can see how they have components of open-ended auto-graded questions as well for students to submit the numerical results if they'd like to in conjunction with whatever narrative they want to provide. This has freed me up to explore the ability for students to provide video feedback. The auto-grading and the user interfaces help students engage in the content in a great depth. So with that said, I want to give you one last glimpse of some of the comments that I've received and bear witness to, both for the home page as well as the assignments page that are major user interface updates. You can see in red here the aspects of what I've just highlighted in terms of easier to focus. That's crucial for the productive disposition of our students. The pillars of mathematical proficiency, and for that matter, STEM proficiency, conceptual, procedural, sure, they're still there, but the ability now to lower the anxiety and stress in helping students make access to their mathematical problem solving, that's becoming evident in this easier to focus type of comment that we're seeing over and over again. Navigation, minimalistic approach where the necessity of items are catching their eye and allowing them to focus where necessary, making it different impact for students not to be distracted. And then on the assignments page, you can see how they're enunciating the fact that everything's in plain sight, as some have alluded to, clear to see and much more user-friendly. In the end, I do have students who use the various platforms of devices, and yes, they use cell phones. And what you're seeing here is they have indeed made this user interface for both home page and assignments adaptable and usable, functional from the phone platform. I don't recommend it, but I have students who have limited resources and use the phone as a sole source of entering their mathematics, believe it or not. And so this has certainly become evident, as the screenshot points out, that the spacing of what they've done to allow the flow of the content to be accessible has been improved tremendously in allowing students to complete their work through multiple platforms. So it's that. I leave you with Jennifer with any comments or questions.
Thank you, Mike. So we just have a couple more questions here, and then we're going to start taking Q&A. I realize that we're going a little long, so I see a few people, a couple have had to drop off, but hopefully we can, but you can bear with us for just a couple more minutes, and we'll answer your questions. So one of the important questions is, what can we expect going forward, team? So Tracy, Mark, team, what, do you have thoughts on that?
Yes. So obviously continued focus on performance and stability. This will always be a focus, so we can provide our customers with the best experience possible. We're going to continue to improve the student experience, as Baxter said, as well as begin the instructor experience. And we're also going to be improving the student ramp-up time, and as well as some LMS experience. I can't wait to continue the conversation between us and you to get regular feedback as we continue to improve Webassign. Mark?
Yeah, I mean, from the product side, we have a lot coming, and I'm actually really excited about it. We have putting a lot more effort into the learning assets that we have. We're putting more functionality support behind co-requisite courses, so making it easier to implement those in your courses will be available starting for this fall. And we have new content types coming, new ways that we can auto-grade proof questions. We have an all-new graphing capability coming up, going into the end of this year, that'll fully replace the graphing tool that we have in the system today. See, that just made Mike very excited. And we also have, and this is actually really exciting for statisticians, a brand new statistical analysis and learning tool that we plan to have out in a pilot form going into fall this year. So that's really going to make it a lot more of a robust tool for teaching statistics. A lot of that's coming really soon. A lot of that's coming really fast. And I'm really looking forward to showing you guys what that stuff is going to look like at our next webinar.
Thank you, guys. Any other thoughts before we go to Q&A? So I'll go ahead and throw out some questions for you guys. So one is, are you planning to have constructive feedback to the students' answers in assignments? For example, if the answer is entered wrong, it gives feedback, not just incorrect.
Yes, so I would say in some courses, we already have that available. It works on a book-by-book or a course-by-course basis. I know in physics, for instance, we have questions that deliver feedback that's based on the specific misconception that students may have, based on the specific mistake that they put into the system. We also have in physics what we call optimized problems that randomize actual words in the question to make it a lot more difficult for students to Google answers and cheat. So those are two things we're actually actively looking at scaling across the team, and we have a couple of pilot projects in place today to create both an artificial way of delivering that information, but really layering in some of our subject matter experts to look at each question, decide what are the common mistakes students make, and then deliver feedback to them. So it is coming, and some of it's actually available now.
Great, great, thank you. So Tom had a question here, comment about Flash, and sometimes he has a challenge with that. So can you just give us a brief update on the use of Flash within Webassign?
Sure. I would say there are 3 places that Flash still exists in Webassign. One of them is with some of our older ebooks, and we're in the process of removing and replacing those ebooks. By this summer, all of the ebooks should be upgraded to be Flash-free and using a new platform. The graphing tool, which I mentioned, is coming early. We actually have pilots planned for this summer. That's also currently in Flash, and the new version will be fully not Flash. And the third place we find it is in some of our older titles, older edition books. Some of the assets were Flash-based. We're currently doing an audit of those and either removing them if no one's actually using that content or planning on upgrading them if people That's a very minimal amount of content though. Most of the assets like the videos have already been upgraded to an HTML5 platform.
Great. Well, that's great news for all of us. So thank you. So Salvador asks, is this the release of this new interface only for the US or for the whole world?
This is for everybody. I mean, students initially, but it will be live for all students in the fall. That means international.
Great. So yes, every Webassign user basically on the student side. Yeah. Wonderful.
And as an instructor, you can always open the student view and see it for yourself.
Great. With the integration, will the integration with Blackboard be improved, such as seamless syncing of grades?
So I can take that. So right now with the Blackboard integration, we do have, I think it's an upgraded version of the Blackboard integration that allows for grade passing back and forth. But Tracy mentioned earlier that we're looking at improving all of the LMS integrations going into next spring, not meaning they'll be available January 1 classes, meaning that's work that the engineering team is starting to undertake this fall with the intent of having some improvements available in the spring of 2020.
Fantastic. So can you talk a little bit about Webassign with OER, with the content that we have available?
Yes. So right now in Webassign, we partner with OpenStax, which is one of the largest OER providers from Rice University. And we have all of their math and physics and chemistry products available in Webassign. We've been talking with them about getting additional assets they may have access to augment those courses. Right now we just have the ebooks available. And we're looking at ways to make the OpenStax experience in Webassign a true OER experience by finding more OER content to beef that up. But it's something we're really working on in conjunction with the OpenStax team.
Great.
And then other OER content we do support in Webassign as well, but it's course by course.
Great. I'm scrolling through the questions here. We have a few more. Some of them have been asked multiple times, different versions that we've already answered. Will there ever be an API made available for instructors to gain programmatic access to their courses in Webassign?
I can answer that.
Great.
We do not currently have an API on this roadmap, but I do want to make sure that I call out that we're working on the instructor experience next after we get the student pages filled out. Behind the scenes of that, we're also making a lot of fundamental improvements to the way that Webassign application and all of its services and servers and communication between all of those pieces works. I won't rule out that APIs may happen in the future. We just don't have it on the roadmap right now. But that's a great question. An API sounds awesome.
Great. Thank you. So is this the same Astronomy Labs? You showed the Astronomy Lab. Is it the same ones that were found in MindTap previously?
The base was, so we took a lot of the content from MindTap for the Astronomy Labs and ported it over to Webassign, but in the process had to recode it, so refined some of it and added in some additional functionality. But by and large, the content is similar. It's the interacting that might be slightly different. And we are looking at building out additional Astronomy Labs in Webassign to augment the ones we already had.
Great. So Irene had a question about Explorer. It's being used with math classes. Will they also be available for any of the biology classes?
There aren't currently plans to do that that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. And will students have an option on the homepage to enter their Webassign access code via Canvas?
I don't
believe that. Yeah, so let me see if I can actually get this answered. So the way that the Canvas integration works with Webassign, we will not be changing how access code entry works. So essentially, the short answer to that question is no. However, like Mark was saying, we are looking into improving our LMS integration. And that means that the way that Webassign works right now with Canvas may shift and evolve and improve in the future. So I hope that answers some of your question. I know it doesn't directly answer whether the access code can be entered. As far as that goes, that interface is not changing right now.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to take one more question because I know we've already kept folks 15 minutes past when we originally asked you to commit some time with us today. So the last question here is, can you speak a bit more about randomization in physics? I think I heard you say the ability for randomizing words will be or is available.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So with certain Webassign physics products, right now it's available in the Survey and Jewett Physics for Scientists and Engineers, and we're working to roll this out in college physics beginning in spring. There are certain questions that we call optimized problems, where the statements in the question randomize just as the values randomized today. So I'm going to give probably a really bad example, but there might be a question where there's a chicken racing against a wildebeest, and the other student might see it as a same question as a turtle racing against a fox, and using representative similar randomized values in the actual speeds that they're running. So we've added in there to really make it more difficult for students to Google answers and cheat that way, but also to keep it mixed up and interesting. So if you have practice problems and you set it to always re-randomize, students are always not going to just get different values. They're going to get whole different question statements. And as I said, college physics for Survey will be next, and we'll be looking at adding that out into other physics courses, and if it's as successful as it has been in physics, rolling it into the math product line as well.
Fantastic. All right. So thank you, everybody, so much. I think I see some other questions in the chat, but I think a lot of them have actually been answered by our panelists in real time. So I'm going to go ahead and let everyone go. If you did have an interest in taking a look at the new user interface, please definitely chat with your sales rep. And if you want to have the potentially turned on live in your course, if you are a current user, we can certainly work with you on that too to see if your course is a candidate for that. And with that said, we're happy to let you go about your day. Everybody have a great rest of the pie day. I hope everybody's getting some pizza or actual pie. I've been hearing comments all day about rhubarb pie and coconut cream pie, and now I think it's my turn to go have some pie. And have a great St. Patrick's Day this weekend. So thank you all so much. Bye.
Bye, everybody.